Our story starts with the woodsman named Vincent. He was roused from his sleep by the sound of a baby's cry echoing through the mountain. The sad sound of the infant continued to be heard as he ran his hands through his disheveled hair. He slowly approached the stable the noise was coming from. Then he quickly flung open the door. A baby was left hidden in their stable. Later her wife followed him and asked why he's holding a baby, and he answered that it's their baby. Years later, Shirone's now 12 years old. Shirone is very smart. He was able to read on his own just from a few words his mother taught him. While on their way home, Shirone is curious if what magic is. His father answered that if you can take down bear with a single arrow or if you can fell trees with a single axe swing, that's magic. As Shirone grew older, he got fascinated by magic, and after a visit to the city with his father, he got lost in the city and got chased by the guards. He managed to encounter a teacher from a magic academy. Shirone's a commoner and only a noble can enter the academy. He asked the headmaster to show him magic, and with a demonstration of wind magic shown by the teacher, Shirone asked him what is magic. And even though he didn't fully understood the meaning of what the teacher told him, his fascination with magic grew tremendously after that fateful encounter. He then sets his sight on becoming a mage on his way back home. That same day the boy was caught in an alley and was beaten very badly and on the brink of death. Shirone is able to enter the spirit zone, which was required in order for any mage to use magic. In this zone he could feel and see everything as if he was split up into a million pieces, inducing the wind magic the teacher had shown him before he completely destroyed his enemies that day, which left a certain impression on a noble crimson-haired girl. After that event had took, his parents wondered what happened on him while he was in the city. While on the mountain, Shirone tried to use magic, but he cannot. The magic he triggered that day was not been used since then. But he can still use the spirit zone the headmaster taught him. 3 years later, in their house, opportunity was presented to him which if taken would bring him closer to his goal of becoming a mage, but also has its own risk. But with his parents' support he took the offer, which was to be brought to the noble Ogun family to work in their library to arrange 10,000 books within 2 years. The head butler left and gave them a week to consider the offer. After the week had come to an end, the head butler returned and Shirone hugged his parents for the last time and said goodbye as he entered the Ogent family's carriage and departed to the main house. On his first day of arriving he was dressed as a butler and was told the do's and the don't he must follow in order to have a smooth, trouble-free life for the 2 years he will be there. Not wasting a single moment, Shirone starts his true purpose of taping the job, which was to read the books in the library and deepen his knowledge about history and magic. As Shirone continued his life of working in the library, a certain fiery blue-haired noble, which was Ryan Ogent, the youngest son of the Ogun family, bursted through the library door and asked Shirone to deceive his teacher because he didn't want to train anymore. But like caught between a rock and a hard place, Arian had to choose between angering a noble or getting beaten by a swordmaster. And of course, in order to keep his life, he revealed where Ryan Ogent was hiding and thus angered him. After what had happened, Ryan showed up again to challenge Shirone, who had never learned swordsmanship in his life, to a deal. And being a noble, Shirone couldn't refuse as it could lead to putting his family in danger. So he had no choice but to accept. Even though he could end up dying as soon as the fight had began, Shirone is being overpowered. Ryan, who had trained for years after being inferior when compared to his older brother, felt relieved that he was winning. But right when the fight had reached its final moments, Arian entered the spirit zone and read the movements of Ryan and shattered his wooden sword into pieces, which surprised both Shirone and Ryan. As Ryan began to feel inferior than Shirone, it resulted in him challenging Shirone again. But this time it will take place in a month's time with real swords and their life on the line. And just like before, Shirone had no choice but to accept. Thus began Shirone's night training of him reading beginner swordsmanship books and swaying his sword with no guidance whatsoever. With just his brain and his diligence, Shirone completed his training and a month had ended. Now they stand face to face with each other with their swords in hand and began the second duel. Ryan, though on how could Shirone exude such an atmosphere, within a month he really changed so much. Just like Shirone had done in his previous duel, he used a spirit zone to figure out Ryan's movements, which caused him to feel even more inferior to Shirone, which led him to become even more serious. With one final clash, Ryan decided to use his most powerful move, which had greatly surprised Shirone. But with his mind at ease, he calmly assessed the situation. and with a turn of his sword, the duel had come to an end. As Ryan loses his sword once again, with a sigh of relief by Shirone, he started to express his actual feelings about the deal. And after hearing how Shirone felt, Ryan was surprised that Shirone wasn't belittling him, and they ended up becoming friends, which from a noble perspective, a commoner, becoming friends with a noble was outrageous. But even with that in mind, Shirone still agreed. From that day onward, whenever Shirone was working at the library, Ryan would come and spend time with him, even though he had no interest in books, but rather became intrigued by Shirone's love for books and his ability to read so fast. But right at that moment, Ryan's brother entered, which startled both Shirone and Ryan as they were keeping their friendship a secret from everyone. Being the tyrant Ryan's brother is, he asked Shirone who would win if a knight and a mage fought. But with a huge amount of insight, Shirone calmly explained how the fight would play out and showed him that if the knight and the mage was evenly matched, the mage would win, and after a swift refusal by Ryan's brother, he walked out of the library and both Shirone and Ryan was able to relax. After a year and 6 months of working for the Ogun family, Shirone had completely arranged the 10,000 books that was assigned to him and was about to leave and go back to his parents. But decided to talk to Ryan one last time, and as a favor, he was invited to the Ogun family's house, which was prohibited for him to enter. While they were there, Ryan toured Shirone around his house, and after hearing a wonderful melody, Shirone wandered off by himself to find out where the sound was coming from, and while listening from afar he was discovered by the girl that was playing the piano. He was then asked if he had played the piano before, and after admitting that he was never able to play it before, the girl told him to come and try playing something. After taking a seat, Shirone played the piano by using the spirit zone to replicate the movements of the girl's fingers on the piano, which was terrible at first, but as he kept playing he was able to perfectly replicate the song the girl had played, which caused her to be amazed at what had happened. But right as Shirone had finished playing, Ryan bursted into the room, and later Shirone found out that the girl who was playing the piano was Ryan's sister. After Ryan and his sister had gotten into an argument between siblings after hearing news of his older brother's achievements, his sister had to leave. After Ryan's sister had left, Shirone started to blush, and with a gentle voice he asked Rai if his sister had a boyfriend, which caused Rai to pause for a moment. After a sudden realization as to what Shirone meant, he started to laugh and ran out the door with Shirone chasing after him, begging him to stop. But to no avail. Ryan made it out and shouted out what Shirone had asked him, causing everyone to hear, including the maids and especially a loyal butler of the Ogun family, which had then reported the news of what he had sought to family head of the great and noble Ogun family. Early in the morning, while Ryan was resting after his intense training, a butler came running. Arriving in front of Ryan, who was taking a drink of water, the butler spoke before he could catch his breath. His sister Raina asked him to immediately come to the mansion. Kite handed his sword to Ryan. Ryan didn't know what his teacher wanted him to do with the sword in particular, but he understood his intentions. Ryan would have to risk his own life if he wanted to solve this situation. Shirone will be executed for having being friends with a noble. The atmosphere inside the mansion was cold. All work stopped momentarily, and the male servants and maids kept their mouths shut. Ryan's father, after looking to the file handed to him, he asked Shirone if all written or all true. But instead answering the question, he asked if what will happen to Ryan if they were really friends. Shirone is still worried in Ryan despite the situation he's in. After answering his question, Shirone admitted that he's friends with Ryan for a year. No one dared to speak up or express themselves, but Shirone's words actually caused a great stir. In particular, the male servants who lived with him were the most shocked, as his friendship with the youngest young master turned out to be true. A son of a noble family and a son of a mountaineer have been friends for over a year. What seemed like a baseless rumor that had been passed around ended up being true. Ryan's father asked the head butler to deal with him and don't let any noise about him to leak. At that time the door opened. Ryan arrived to help Shirone this time.